Hello, beloveds. Welcome to the Amanda Collins podcast. It's my honor to help you awaken to joy, be your greatest self, and live a life you love. I'm Amanda Collins. Each week, I'll share tips, practices, and rituals to help you feel the storehouse of joy inside. I'll answer your questions and talk with thought leaders from around the world about health, wealth, love, conscious living, and parenting. Are you ready to live your most fulfilled life? Hello, Awaken to Conscious Business. I am so honored to have Paul Congdon here with us today. Paul is the founder of Positive Life magazine and an editor, and he's the founder of the Buddha Bag meetings, both which started up in 2007 and 2008. Paul is an all-round advocate of positivity and loves to spread new and interesting ideas, speak to spiritual teachers and leaders in their field, and get ideas out to the masses. Paul is an interviewer, a writer, a speaker, a talker, a publisher, a host, and a businessman, a conscious businessman. So welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Amanda. Delighted to be here. This is brilliant. Love talking about this kind of stuff.
Oh, I know. I'm so grateful you're here. Thank you. And actually, I think one of the latest people you interviewed was Echkart Tolle, right?
Yeah, that was our most recent one. He was our main feature in the current issue of the magazine. That's the second time I've interviewed him.
Well, that must have been an honor because I love him and I love following his work. And I'd love to hear more about that maybe in a little bit. But
Sure.
Most importantly, we'd love to hear just about your story and why Positive Life, why Positive Nights. Like, where did that all come from?
Where did it all come from? Okay. So right back at the beginning. So I went through one of those spiritual shifts that everybody goes through when I was 33 years of age. And I was on a holiday in Spain and I had anxiety and kind of depression type symptoms. And I just didn't know what was going on. I felt a bit empty in my life. And I saw a sign on a hotel wall for Reiki, and I didn't know what that was. And my cousin at the time, like I had no background in holistic stuff at all. I had no real interest in that. And my cousin said to me, I think that might be some kind of massage. It might help you, it might relax you. And I went to the Reiki session, and obviously weird stuff starts to happen in your life too. I went to a kind of a beach party that night, and I didn't feel particularly safe in myself. So I sat beside a woman because she had these real sparkly blue eyes. And I sat beside her. She was kind of had white hair and she seemed quite Germanic. But I sat beside her. I don't know why. I just sat beside her because I felt a bit safe. And the next morning I went to my Reiki appointment, and it was like a little beach hut. And I kind of was waiting outside, and the door opened, and that woman who I had sat beside was standing there.
Oh my goodness.
To give me a Reiki session. I know.
Amazing.
I was like, I only thought about that afterwards, but at the time I was like, I would dismiss that kind of thing. I was just like, well, that's just a weird coincidence. So I went in and had a session, and I always remember lying on the bed, and it was very warm weather. So I just had a pair of shorts, and she was giving me a Reiki session. And I always remember that I started to smile, and I hadn't smiled in quite a long time. So I thought, that's a bit strange. And I could really feel an energetic feeling in my body, and I kind of felt uplifted. And at the end of the session, like I was in such a bad state that my heart would be thumping, I was really full of anxiety. And at the end of the session, she said to me, would you like to come back tomorrow? And I said, I'll probably come for the rest of the week. And she said, you're going through quite a tough time at the moment, but you have a very big and beautiful heart. And I actually felt embarrassed because nobody ever said anything like that to me before. That was quite an intimate thing to say. It felt, but I was totally moved by that. I was like, wow, that's just an amazing thing to say to somebody. So I went every day for the rest of the week. And when I came back to Ireland, I trained in Reiki, and I became I did all the levels of Reiki. I was obsessed by it. And I remember I used to manage a rock band, and I'd be in bars and working with bands and all that kind of thing. And I always remember a year later when I was into Reiki, I'd be sitting in a room surrounded by women wearing tracksuit bottoms and drinking peppermint tea. And I was thinking, my life has really changed. but I felt so at home. I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm into now. And then my life started to move very differently. I started to get into all this kind of stuff. I was working in a corporate job that I really, wasn't amazing for me. I wasn't really enjoying it. I was making decent money, so it kind of kept me there. And I just decided like to kind of set up a little group where we could talk about this kind of stuff. Because when I went to my friends and I'd say, hey, I'm doing this Reiki and I'm kind of investigating life a bit more, they were kind of saying, have you found God? And I was like, no, that's limiting. I'm not talking about finding God. So there was nobody to talk to or share this kind of stuff to. And at the time, there was actually a friend of mine. He was quite an eccentric. His name is David McDermott. He's from New York, and he would be a lot older than me. And he was big into, the likes of Florence Scovel Shinn and the New Thought movement, and As a Man Thinketh, these kind of books,
Right.
Think and Grow Rich. He'd be talking to me about those kind of books. And he said, why don't we have a discussion group about all this kind of stuff? And I was like, that's a great suggestion. And then I was in the city centre one night and just talking to a guy, and he said, are you into spiritual things? And I said, yeah, I'm getting into all that right now. And I'd read Conversations with God, which had sparked a lot in me. But really, that book was huge for me.
Yeah, that was one of my first too, like 20 years ago,
Oh my God. Some of the statements in that book are like, wow, just beautiful,
It's like underline, highlight.
Totally.
Highlight.
Highlight the whole book. And I was sitting in town, and another weird thing happens. I'm sitting there, and this guy says to me, there's this guy I know, and he's into this new thing. It's channeling. And he said to me, do you find that a bit weird? And I thought, I don't even know what that is. And he said, well, he was about to tell me the name of it. And we're sitting in a restaurant, and he says to me, oh, that guy, I thought he was away on holidays. He just walked into the restaurant. I said, the guy you're talking about into the spiritual thing just walked into the restaurant. I said, there he is there. And he said, Tom, this is Paul. I'm telling him about you. And this older guy kind of comes over, shakes my hand, and he says, yeah, what would you like to know? And I said, he's just telling me that you're into something. And your man says, yeah, I'm into Abraham Hicks. And it's weird, but like, I got goosebumps, and the hairs on my arms just stood up, I was like, this is weird. So your man meets me in his Jeep a few hours later with a tape, because back then we were listening to tapes, just like hilarious. And so I get in the Jeep of this man's, I'm driving around with a strange guy listening to that mad sound of Abraham's voice, which at the time was a bit weirder than it is now. I think she's really kind of, she's blended with the channel a lot more recently. So then it was kind of weird, like alien sounding. I don't know if you heard the early tapes, did you, of Abraham Hicks?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's definitely aligned more.
Yeah, so we're driving around listening to that, and I just got such a buzz from that. And I swear to God, I was like listening to tapes in my apartment non-stop. And then I just decided, discussion group, Abraham Hicks, put on a tape and have a discussion. And that's how Buddha Bag started. I got a space in town called the Buddha Bag Shop. I called it the Buddha Bag Meeting. And we would go in there and we would put on Abraham Hicks, Deepak Chopra, Echkart Tolle, any spiritual teacher, put them on for about an hour and then discuss the whole thing. The first couple of weeks, there was a low kind of attendance. And then I remember going in one week and there was about 50, 60 people there. And the weird thing was they were all kind of mad hippie types, real, because that's not my background at all. And so I go in and I was looking at all these kind of real funky, people who were, one guy, I remember him saying to me that he was fasting and he was like meditating. And I was like, Jesus, these guys are really serious about this stuff. And I put on the Hicks tape, which I was getting such a buzz out of, and you couldn't hear a pin drop. They were literally, wow, that you could feel them appreciating the wisdom. And these guys were really into this stuff. They were kind of into Eastern philosophy. They were, that type of vibe. And then it just kind of spiraled. And next thing, we were getting huge crowds in there. And then I had my my background is sales and advertising and investment and that kind of stuff. And I went to see Deepak Chopra do a talk in the National Concert Hall. So this brings us into the magazine now. And I see a lady and she's kind of selling stuff at a table for Deepak. And I go over and there's a magazine on the table and it's called Positive Life. And I say, that kind of looks like a, spiritual kind of pamphlet or something. So I say, that's a really nice name. And the woman says to me, oh, that's my own magazine, and I'm just helping Deepak out here. And I say, wow, that's I'd really like to read that, So I just thought it was great to have a spiritual magazine in Ireland, because I hadn't seen one before, really. And I picked it up, and she asked me, do you know anyone who can sell? Because I'm thinking, I need to stop this, because I don't know how to sell advertising in it. And I said, do I know anyone? Well, you're talking to me. I'm the right man for that. So I took it on as a kind of a side project with my job. And it started to go really, really well, to the point where people were ringing up saying they would take ads in every issue of the magazine that year. And I remember one person saying to me that they got 100 phone calls from the magazine. So I was like, geez, that whole area was kind of lifting off. This was 2007. That whole area was really lifting off in Dublin. There was an excitement around it. I mean, now I would say it's almost mainstream. Then it was kind of, what do you call it? Counterculture a little bit, And so I started to work on it. And then after about a year, I think, she told me she was going to sell it. And I thought, well, that's it. I'll go back to my corporate job and focus on that. And I was just going home from my office one night, and I heard a voice, or an intuition, and it said, you have to buy that magazine. And I'm like, I'm not really a business owner type of person. I'm happy working for other people. No, this is your opportunity. You have to buy that magazine. And I needed to borrow money, and through whatever happened, I got it. And I bought the magazine in I think it was spring 2008. And my first issue was summer 2008.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. I've never heard this story before, and I've got chills all over. Like, I call them God bumps,
Yeah. And it's, I have to tell you this kind of weird story, because I didn't tell that story for a while. And then one of the issues of the magazine, I think it might have been 2011, someone said, why don't you tell that story in your little intro? So I was writing the intro, and I was telling the story about how I'd seen the magazine at Deepak Chopra. And then I realized, Amanda, that Deepak Chopra's on the front cover of the issue that I'm writing the intro for, because we just interviewed him. And I hadn't joined up the dots. You know the way you just don't observe? Mm-hmm. I'm like, so I wrote, wow, this has come full circle. Deepak Chopra's on the front cover. We just interviewed him. And his talk was where so when you get into this stuff, yourself, so many
magic happens.
Magic happens.
Yeah, it really does. And hey, talk about full circle. I mean, you just shared, like, back in the day, when you were, Abraham Hicks, but you're like Echkart Tolle. And who did you just interview? Echkart Tolle. So it's just like, it's beautiful just to hear about that flow. And when you just follow your intuition, and it's for a higher level of consciousness, how it just creates this abundance for everybody.
I honestly can't believe that I often hear people talk about this when they're doing a job, and you just think that, oh, well, they must be used to doing that job. I'm not used to this job. Like, when I go and interview Echkart Tolle, I'm still as excited. I'm like, I'm interviewing Echkart. Are you for real? And a buddy of mine, Tommy, who kind of does sound. So he always does the interviews with me, and he's a real Dublin head, and we'll be sitting in there, and we dial the phone number, because Echkart lives in Canada, and we dial the phone number. Next thing we hear, hello, Echkart Tolle's voice, and we're like, Echkart Tolle's on the phone. And I always kind of start the conversation, is that really you, Echkart? And he's like, he just laughs, at the Irish humor. And we're just like, this is hilarious. And I often slag him as well. I say, all you ever talk about is the now. Is there anything else you want to talk about? And he just laughs, So
I love it.
It's amazing.
Well, that is incredible. So I love hearing this whole story. And so, would you describe what you've done and what you've created as Conscious Business? And like, I suppose, what does, if I say, like, I said to you, hey, would you do this interview on Conscious Business? Like, what does Conscious Business mean to you?
Well, actually, I thought a little bit about that. And because my business background was investment and advertising sales, and it was not conscious. I worked for companies that were get the sale, and that's all that counts. And I used to do advertising, and it would be questionable. Advertising is a tricky thing. It's hard to determine what works. So it's almost like I was trained skill-wise to do what I do now, because business is a big part of what I do now. And in order to get that magazine out, you have to market. Yourself, we all have to market.
Mm-hmm.
I have to get advertising in there. So my feeling on the whole conscious business thing, something clicked for me a while ago. I actually saw a guy called Aravinda Himadra, who's well worth looking up. He's a very interesting guy. He dresses like someone out of Battlestar Galactica, so he's got quite a hilarious look. He's American, and he came to speak at a big thing we have here called the Conscious Concert. And he just made this statement. I've heard it before, but he said it very, very well. He said, the world will change when people wake up in the morning and they say, not what they're currently saying is, what can I get? When they wake up and say, what can I give? Then the world will have changed. And it made me really think about my own business. And I thought, because sometimes you're on a survival buzz and you're kind of trying to get what you need to survive, right? And you have to kind of stand back from that and just say, hang on a second. What do they need? What do my clients need? What do people around me need? How can I support these people? Now, some people might think that's a bit, like airy-fairy in a way, but actually that works both ways. Because when you serve from that perspective, it serves you more than ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that can't be the reason you're doing it.
No, and everything's energy. I mean, it's scientifically proven right now. Like if you write in, like, let's just say you've got to send weekly newsletters or something, right? And it's all about energy, and especially our tribe, your tribe, our tribe. They're all about energy, so they're going to feel things. So when you do a newsletter and you're just like, oh, I've just got to get this out, and oh my goodness, or you send a newsletter and you're like, just like you're saying, how can I give? And like, it's just like, bing, it comes out of the inbox, and they can just feel that then, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I love that. And I agree, like sometimes it's not always easy just to constantly be in that space, but if you, I don't know, put a sign on your wall, like, or on your bedroom, in your mirror or something when you wake up in the morning, it's like, how can I give? It's not about what can I can receive.
And it feels like quite a relief to me when I think like that, because I've thought the other way, obviously, and that just you don't get really anywhere with that, and you don't feel good. You get a little bit anxious about things, whereas when you go from that perspective, like sometimes I'll be selling an ad to somebody and I really want that ad because the magazine's going to press pretty soon. And then I'll stop for a moment and I'll just feel into it, and I remind myself I'm a good communicator. That's one of my skills. And I just will stop and say to myself, ask this person about their business. Ask them what is it that they want to achieve, what they want to do, with this commercial thing that they're doing. And that just deflates the whole situation, and the guy gets to talk about what he wants to do. And sometimes actually, there is a saying that people buy from people, and that's a big part of what I do. I like to engage directly with the person and really feel into what they're after. And I always I'll go the extra mile as well because sometimes as well I'm promoting things that I really believe in, that I want people to go to. So that's, like Echkart Tolle is on in September and we're helping him promote his event. It's like, yeah, I'm delighted to do it, so, and I'll do anything I can to make sure that people know that it's on. You see, Ireland at the moment is so bombarded with so many different things going on. It's unbelievable. I mean, when the Buddha Bag started, it felt like we were the only spiritual event happening every week. Now, we obviously weren't, but it actually felt like that. I mean, it was just, people were coming in saying, oh my God, I can't believe this is on. There's nothing else on. Nobody's talking about this stuff. That was obviously just the clique we were in, but it really did feel like that. But now you probably notice yourself, there's so many things going on. So you have to hold that space so you can be seen, amidst it all.
But don't you really know that whoever is meant to have that experience for the evolution of their soul, like they're going to be attracted to that event? And do you feel, because this is how I really just love to operate, from how I love to think and be, but there is like an abundance for everybody. Like there's no such thing as lack, because let's say, for example, one of the things I do is I train people in feng shui, but I still do consulting. And it never comes up to me like I'm going to train people and there'll be less consultations. It's just like, great, there's more people I train more people to help more people and spread the word and spread this wisdom, So do you feel that there's more than enough for everybody?
Absolutely. I just feel the abundance is, and recently got a thing about something. I was going on a holiday and I'm I'm going through a phase at the moment where I felt like I needed more abundance, and I was focusing on the financial side of it. So I asked the universe for more financial abundance, and I wrote it down, and I did a little exercise on it. There's a thing called Focus Wheel by Abraham Hicks that I love, and I did a little bit on that. And you just write down what it is you want, and then you write down things that you already have that feel similar to the thing you want. And I love that, that little exercise. And as I was doing it, I was thinking, I don't see any cash coming in the door. What's going on? And I went away recently on holiday, I was telling you, right? And my holiday was all paid for.
Love it.
Now, it just happened. I wasn't even noticing it. It's like my friend Tanya came back from Portugal, and she got a free trip because she was translating for people here. She's a Russian translator. So we're staying in all these hotels and it's free. So she's going to work and I'm driving around and seeing all the lovely sights in Kerry and Cork. And then I did a little writing exercise. I had to do an article. So I stayed in a place down there called Aloha House. And the woman said to me, would you like a Lomi Lomi massage? I'd like you to experience it. My gift to you. So I get a Lomi Lomi massage. I get put up in this place. Then I get put up in a place called Dungarvan. And what beautiful. And I'm kind of thinking, oh my God, I was looking for it in cash, and here it comes in this energetic exchange. And it really made me see that abundance just comes everywhere, anything, and it's the feeling that we're after, not the physical thing. It's the feeling of abundance. Yeah. That's what really gets us there. Yeah.
And I think that the more that you're like aware, you're not like, I never got that cash, it was like, oh, there's all this abundance coming, and then you're grateful for it. And then what does the universe say? Oh, okay, this is what he or she is vibrating at. So if they're vibrating at that, they're going to attract more of that, And one other thing I just want to say thank you so much to you, because, talking about conscious business and a new way of doing business, right? You are just like the ultimate connector. And I agree, you're an amazing communicator, but you're an amazing connector because that's just what you do. I mean, I would say already on our 20 minutes that we've been chatting, you have referred probably like 20 people, resources, hotels. Like, you're just incredible. So I think the question is business before was all about hierarchy and stepping on the next person and like to make it to the top. But now this new way of being is like, how can I support you? And how can we come into alignment? How can we collaborate? How can we all inspire each other to be our best and support each other in getting there versus like standing on each other to get there? Like, what's your feeling on this?
I think collaboration is actually really powerful. And I always remember somebody came up to me once and they said, you have an event on Thursday, haven't you? People ask me all the time to help them with their events. And I always, some of them say, I don't have any money. Like, I probably want money. And I say, no, well, tell me what the event is. And they tell me. And there was one guy once and he said, I'm sorry for ringing you, but it's on the same night as your Buddha bag. So you're probably going to tell me to back off, And I was like, no, not really, actually. What's the event? And he told me, and I thought, that sounds really cool. And I thought my audience would like to know about that. And I remember feeling a bit mad because there is a competitive spirit in me as well. And I thought, you're actually going to tell people about this event on the same night as your event? And I just heard, just my intuition said, I want people to know what's on. I want them to make their own decision. I don't want to railroad them into coming to my gig. So I love, actually, more than ever now, saying, you know what, Joe Dispenza is on, or even a guy down the road, Conscious Living Group, is running an event on the same night I am, and he's doing Feng Shui as well. Or, it does seem a little bit counterproductive, but at the same time, I've had appreciation from people who are in it's now called Positive Nights, who come to me and say, you tell us about everything that's on, so we make our own decisions. And I love that, and I feel that's important, really important. And it comes back to you, those people who I've done things for, they always come back to me and say, thank you so much. Or I got this from that and I really appreciate it. So and then they tell me, I told loads of people about your meetings and, I told you're on next week and blah, blah, blah. And, it really gets paid back to you, and you're right. It's all collaboration now. It has to be. That's the new spirit.
And then it's just a new conscious way of doing business, and knowing that there's plenty of abundance for everybody. And I'm so grateful to you because, as I just moved back home to Ireland this past year, but it's like you've welcomed me to write in Positive Life for a number of years. And just anytime I need resources leading these spiritual journeys, like, hey, if you got a fairy person or this or that, like, it's like you're the man to go to. And then it's just like, you're so generous on all levels. Then it's just like, well, how can I be and support you in any way? So it's like, I feel like you starting, Positive Nights or Buddha Bag is what it was called back then. Like it really did raise the consciousness in Ireland, in Dublin, and then ripple effect into the world. And then it just like you gave other people permission to maybe even say come out of the closet, right?
You mean individuals themselves? You mean
yeah, and then to see people feel comfortable to put on their own events and just to step into their own life.
I mean, it's funny because I told you about the Irish Times, and the guy who interviewed me was slightly skeptical, but he came to one of the events and he turns to me the other day in the interview, and this guy is a real, just kind of normal guy, a little bit into meditation and stuff, and kind of slagging some of the things. But he turned to me and he said, I came to your event, and actually we had Tony Robbins' breath coach, personal breath coach. I don't know how. That's another thing that amazes me. We get people from all over the world now. I mean, I used to be phoning Amanda for people. I'd have a talk on a Thursday. I'd be ringing on around on a Wednesday looking for a speaker. I wouldn't have a speaker.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, you can get booked up for 2 or 3 months in advance. And I have people coming back to me like you. I list you as one of my top people that come in once a year and do a talk. Don Cartwright, who's an amazing Tantra teacher. I mean, just had so many amazing speakers. So this guy, he says, I'm Tony Robbins' personal breath coach. I'm doing a book tour. Could I come and speak at Positive Nights? And he asked me, he names it, and I'm like, how do you know what Positive Nights even is? And he said, somebody in Ireland told me all about it. I say, okay. So he comes in, the Irish Times come along, and the guy says to me, he said, I was really with the whole thing. He said, I thought it was amazing. And then somebody asked a question about, you think you could live on breath and give up food? And he said, that's when they lost me. I just thought these people are nuts. And then he said, we always do this thing at the end that you probably remember. We join hands and we just kind of send each other good energy and wish each other well. And he turns to me and he said, that thing you do at the end. And I thought, he's going to give me grief now. And he said, that's amazing. He said, I actually got I went home on a buzz, I just thought, wow, this whole thing is so mainstream now, it's so, because I used to be I'd have 2 lives, I'd go into my kind of spiritual life and then I'd talk to my other friends and I wouldn't say too much. Now they're all asking me, they're all saying, what's the deal with this stuff? It really works. So the world is just really changing. And even though people, like I said this to Eckhart in the interview, I said, we had Barack Obama, now we have Donald Trump. That looks a bit tricky. Did we go back there? And he said, no, it's cyclical. He said, do you ever one day feel that you're really doing well and then the next week you just wake up and you feel a bit crap? He said, that's human evolution. We go back, we go forward. It's cyclical, but we're on the way. We're always on the way. We're always evolving. Never lose sight of that. And he said that what's happening now is actually amazing because it's a huge contrast. It's going to produce a huge desire to get us where we really want to go.
I'm getting chills. I
just got them there too when I said that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That's incredible. And people need to hear that as well. So again, I feel like, Awaken to Conscious Business, it's like what you're doing is that it's like, first of all, interviewing Eckhart. So just aligning your energy with him and then putting it into a magazine so that those words that you just shared, they're going out in this podcast right now, but they're going out in that magazine, and everybody that opens that, they're just going to find such a deep place of peace. Because we both know this, that if we want world peace, we have to be that energy ourselves. And if we're constantly in fear or stress or any of those low vibrations, we're just creating more of that energy that we don't want.
Absolutely. And it's really empowering to I get to speak to all these people and I ask them these questions and they give me these answers, and it's just, I have been completely changed by the people surrounding me, and I've also been changed by the community that's around me. It's when I think about it, I could get really emotional about it because it supported me so well. I mean, when I used to run Buddha Bag, literally, I would be running Positive Life, as this is an interesting one because when we talk about conscious business, I would run Positive Life more like a traditional business in the early days. And I would get a little bit like, that's where I had to pay my bills from. So I'd be a bit more protective of it. And then I would come to Buddha Bag, and I didn't need Buddha Bag to provide me with anything financially. So I would just say, I don't care who comes. I honestly don't care who comes, and I don't care who speaks. And I used to say to the speaker, they'd say, how many people do you think's coming? I say, it could be me and you. Is that okay with you? And they'd laugh and say, actually, yeah, that's okay. You know, and it'd be packed. It'd be literally packed out the door. And I would just go, how's that happening? And the universe was saying to me, because you're not getting in the way of it.
So that's amazing. So what I'm really hearing from you is, and I'd really love to hear more about this, but the ego and not running business from a place of ego, and how many people are going to like me on Facebook, how many people are going to show to the meeting, because if I get more likes, or there's more people at the meeting, or more people in the magazine, it's my self-worth, right? So what I'm hearing you say is like, this is just something like spirit moving through you, and you just like take that. Like, it's not like ego can't be around, because ego has a way of, you know, I think it's just like not operating from the ego. Like, I'd love to hear more about that.
Not operating from the ego. Well, we all know him very well, or her.
Yeah, him or her.
She talks a lot, and she has opinions on everything. She has judgment on everything. And, you know, one of the things that I've always had, because we've had events that have been, like we will have a mainstream event, we'll have someone talk about nutrition, we'll have you come and talk about feng shui, and then we'll have someone come in and they want us, they're channeling crystal skulls, or they're talking to extraterrestrials. And people will say to me, how do you, that's baloney. And I'll say, no, it isn't. I'll tell you what it is, because I'd be in there sometimes and I would think, you know, this is not I'm not enjoying this particular evening, Buddha Bag or whatever. And even though I'm the host, because I'm the host, I have to stay and just say, okay, well, it's grand, I'll sit here. I've had people come up to me afterwards and say, oh my God, that changed my whole life. That's really impacted upon me. And I just go, really? And they say, yeah, I did the course in it, and now I'm the leading practitioner in Ireland doing that work. So I just realized that there's something for everybody, and it brings me back to the ego again, because that would be telling me this wasn't good or trying to block that. And I just say to myself, open is the best position to be in, and open in business, you know, open for business, to just stay as much as you can away from that voice in your head. I think the language of feeling is how to navigate business. If it feels good, then go for it, you know.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I love that you say, you know, keep away from that voice in your head. I was having a conversation with a girlfriend the other day, and she's like, she made a mix up a date. She's like, I'm losing my mind. Oh, it's the best thing I've ever done. So I would love, will you share with us, what is like your self-care? Like, how do you keep the ego, the thoughts, you know, because you're doing a lot, running a magazine and Positive Nights and everything, and all the work that you do in the world. How do you keep yourself balanced? And like, tell us a little bit about that.
I think that's a big topic at the moment. And I think I definitely find that I'm working very hard sometimes. And because of the way that I work, like sometimes I'll be doing an off, like when the magazine's going to press, it's like really intense. And then I kind of have a couple of weeks where I can chill a little bit and I don't have to do a lot of business dealings. So what I find is working that way is tricky sometimes. And I'm actually developing a new attitude to that now, where sometimes I'd say, I got to get this done. And now I'm kind of saying, okay, when I get into that space where I got to get this done, that means I got to step away from it actually. And just take breaks and really look after myself in the midst of the chaos. Try and take the breaks. But on a daily basis, I would wake up every morning and I would do, the first thing I do is the gratitude. And I write down at least 3 things from the day before that I loved. And I always try to activate the feeling of that rather than just writing it down, if you know what I mean. So I actually, like as well, but neuroscience, I'm big into neuroscience, and I speak to a lot of those kind of leading people in neuroscience like Rick Hansen and Joe Dispenza. And they always say, milk the good stuff as much as possible, because what that's doing, and this is scientifically proven, is creating new neural pathways in the brain, because we've got the other neural pathways, the ones that are stress related. So we've got to recreate these new ones. So we keep milking the gratitude. And I will do gratitude now. I find that even though I'm writing 3, if I have time, some days I might write 10 or 11. And I really activate the feeling of that. And then I'll do my meditation, which is usually about 20 minutes long. And I meditate pretty much every day. There's another thing I do, which I like to do lately. It's called, it's kind of stems from the Alexander technique. And it's just simply lying in that position on your yoga mat with your legs up and 2 books under your head. And it allows the body to completely unwind. And I find that's really, really nice because it kind of brings my heart rate right down. And then I also find I really like to do, I'm kind of getting into a little bit of breath work. And of course, I love feng shui, what you do. I think that's amazing. I think that what that does, it's like a little tool that creates more harmony in the space around you. So lately I've been working a lot on clutter and getting rid of stuff and just how you feel. You're such an advocate of this, but like the other week I just did it. I have a kind of home office and I just cleaned it completely out. I was like, wow, the sense of space that it gave me, you know. So all of those things. And then I'm a big fan of nature. I love nature. I live near Glendalough, which is a beautiful space in Ireland. It's a lake in
Oh, I didn't know you were in Wicklow now.
No, I'm in Dublin, but I can drive to Glendalough in about 45 minutes. I live in Monkstown, which is kind of near Dundee. So I'm about 40-minute drive to Glendalough. And that's just an amazing space. So I try to do that at least once a week, but then I walk locally on the pier or that kind of thing. Nature is really, really powerful. And I remember we had a talk in Budapest one night, and there was a lady there who talks to trees, quite an eccentric lady, but amazing. And she said that she'd studied trees, and she said that they actually, you go for a walk in nature, you feel good. She said the reason you feel good is because they release an aerosol which goes into your bloodstream. The trees are actually sending a chemical into your bloodstream. And I was like, wow, that's like, you just think you feel good. And I knew there was something going on, but she's like, science has now measured that this is what's actually happening. And you're like,
I know.
All this stuff is backed up now.
Yeah. I mean, I love it, even just with the kids, it's like every day out in nature, let's play, let's go barefoot, let's roll down and let's hug the trees. I mean, there's something to be said. I agree. Like if I'm ever in that space where I feel like I'm just pushing through, I've got to get this done, it's like, I like put down, step away from the computer, and it's like, I just go, I'm right here in the country. I've got the mountain behind, an amazing forest around, and alone or with the kids or the whole family, we just go into the forest and lay down and look up at the sun coming down through the leaves, or and it's just like completely shifts your energy, your perspective, your priorities, your gratitude. I mean, it just brings you back into your heart back into alignment. I totally agree. I mean, there's nothing like it.
And the weird, like, this is just to say to business people out there who are listening to this, that they might think, oh, well, hang on, I'm in the middle of a deadline, I got to get this done. This has happened to me several times where I need business, I need to fill a page or an ad or something, and I can't get this guy on the phone, he's not returning my calls. I take the break, I step away, I go on the pier, I chill out, I come back to the office, there's an email, we'll go with that page.
That's so true.
Honest to God, that's happened to me how many times?
I know.
So I just want to announce the actual, it works, you know what I mean? Not that I'm doing it to work. I'm actually saying I need to take a break. But I come back and what I wanted to happen, which was not happening, happens while I'm on the break.
Mm-hmm. Or even like you come back and something even better. It's just exactly. Like, it's just, what? It's like we hear it all the time. Just be present with what? Like it's just stop. Put your hands on your heart, what is it I need? Like, what is it I need? And if this is what I need, this is what's needed on a conscious level, like universally, and how can I detach from what I've got like overly attached to now, and so thank you so much for sharing that. That is like everything you've shared are just like gold nugget after gold nugget after gold nugget. And, thank you for all that you do. And what I would love to ask you is all the listeners right now, how can we serve you? What can we do to support you?
Wow, that's quite a question. Yeah. Okay. So when I feel into that, what I get is that there's only one of us, and so by all of you or all of the people listening to this, kind of, if you can wake up in the morning and say, what can I give today in general to people? If you can do acts of kindness, if you can feel like there's only one of us and talk to each other that way, that you're actually talking to yourself, that you're looking into the eyes of yourself, that you're seeing God in everybody you see. If you can live like that, then the rest will take care of itself.
That is such beautiful words from a wonderful wise man. And thank you so much for being with us here today. And I would just love to say to the listeners, leave on the comments below here. We would love to hear from you. And like Paul said, share in the comments. Ask yourself right now, what can I give today? How can I be of service today? And no, yeah, we're all one. So that is so beautiful, Paul. Thank you for being with us. Love you.
Such a pleasure. Thank you, Amanda. Pleasure.
Thanks, beloveds, for joining us today. Please come over to theamandacons.com to continue the conversation and get access to all my podcasts, blogs, and videos. Did you enjoy this podcast? If so, please subscribe to the Amanda Cons podcast on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. Feel free to pass this podcast on to your friends. That helps us get incredible guests to share their secrets for an inspired and joyful life. If you want more great resources, come over to amandacons.com and join my mailing list for all my latest content. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, I'm sending love